All right, so we are on the last stretch of the year, and one of the things that we do is that we read Vizosa Bracha. Thank you very much. What's your name? It's my son. Doesn't mean I know his name. So one of the things we do towards the end of the year is we read Vizosa Bracha. Now it's just very interesting, if you take a look in Vizosa Bracha, in Perek Lamed Gimel Pasuk Chav Zayin. So the Torah says, it's an interesting allusion. The Torah says, Me'ona Eloi Kedem umitachas ros olam v'yigoresh v'panecha oyev v'yomer hashmeid. So the article translated as Hashem's abode of Hashem, and below are the world's mighty ones. But then the end of the pasuk says, "Vayigoresh mipanecha oyev, vayomer hashmeid." Hashem chases away the enemy, and He says, "Destroy them." And the Mepharshim say that alludes to Yom Kippur. In Yom Kippur, the enemy is chased away, which is the Satan. The Satan is chased away. Vayigoresh mipanecha oyev, vayomer hashmeid. And they destroy Pamaya delay, all of the assistants of the Satan, the various forces of evil, right? The various forces, all of them are chased. They're destroyed, and they're chased away. They're obliterated. And then the next pasuk says, "Vayishkon Yisrael betach badad ein Yaakov." Badad stands for bad. Bad is like a branch. Dalid, the four species. So you have an allusion over here to the end of the year, which is now, which is Yom Kippur, followed by Sukkos. And obviously there's a connection. Yom Kippur, it's just like Pesach and Shavuos, there's a connection. You count the 49 days from Pesach to Sukkot to Shavuos. So here it's obviously comes in one package. Rosh Hoshana, Yom Kippur, Sukkos, it's all leading up to the climax, which is now Sukkos, and then Hoshana Rabbah, and then Shmini Atzeres, and for those of you who keep 2 days, Simchas Torah. I mean, I know that you don't keep 2 days, it's like 3 days. You get the 3 dayers, right? You get 3 days 3 times. That must be symbolic of something. So I just said it to somebody the other day. He said to me, "I love it." Somebody living in Israel. He said to me, "I love it." But he's living in Israel now. So it's easy. I'd like to see what he said when he was living in America. That's what he says now. So you have this, the process comes to its climax now on Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres, and the siyum of the Torah. Now, when we make a siyum, it's traditional that you end Vizosa Bracha, and then we connect it up to Bereshis. There's a very significant, interesting connection when you read the end of the pasuk, Le'inei Kol Yisrael, and the very next pasuk is Bereshis Borei Elokim. So Chazal say, Rashi brings down on the first pasuk in Bereshis is that the Bereshis refers to the Torah, and that the entire world was created for the sake of the Torah. The entire world was created for the sake of Klal Yisrael to learn Torah. Without Torah being learned, the world would cease to exist. The world would go back to a state of whatever Tohu Vavohu is. But there's an important point that we have to keep. It's a tremendous accomplishment. Being Messiahim the Torah is a tremendous accomplishment. We finished the entire Torah. You went through an entire year, read Mavir Sedra every week, and you finished the entire Sefer Torah, and we're being Messiahim it. But we have to keep in mind there were 2 partners. One was a Jew and one was a Goy. The Goy and the Jew, they were very, very prominent businessmen. They were partners. And one day this Goy says to his friend, another Goy, because I know that the Jews have a holiday called Yom Kippur. I want to see what they do on Yom Kippur. What do Jews do on Yom Kippur? So his friend says to him, "Listen, if you want to go, you go see your friend, the Jew. He's going to be in the synagogue on Yom Kippur, so that's where you're going to find him. Then you sit in the synagogue. You'll see what Jews do on Yom Kippur. I know they fast, and then you'll get an idea." This is great. So he goes to the shul, he finds the shul, he walks in on Yom Kippur, right when they're selling the aliyahs. On Yom Kippur, the tradition is you sell the aliyahs, after you sell Kohen, Levi, that sort of thing. You sell all the honors in the shul. So he walks in, and they're in the middle of selling the aliyahs. So he hears somebody says he's bidding $1,000. Somebody else bids $2,000. Somebody else bids $5,000. Then he hears his partner, the Jew, he bids $10,000. So the guy immediately says $25,000. So the other guy looks at him and he says, you don't even know what you're bidding on. He says, listen, I know my partner. My partner's a good businessman. If it's worth $10,000 to him, it's got to be good. I'll pay $25,000 for it. So, probably in the shul they sold it to him. It's like the story with the rabbi with the dog. The guy comes to the rabbi and he says to the rabbi, my dog's having a bar mitzvah. Could you do a bar? They call it a bark mitzvah. Can you do a bark mitzvah for my dog? So the rabbi says, we don't do that sort of thing here. Maybe go to the Reform Temple down the road. He goes, all right, but there's $50,000 for whichever synagogue does the bar mitzvah. He says, well, why didn't you tell me the dog is Jewish? So what do you call it? The guy doesn't even know what he's bidding on. You don't even know what you're buying. You don't even know what you're paying for. But he knows one thing, that if the Jew, his partner, is bidding high, it must be that it's worth something. And it's worth more than, even if he doesn't understand it, it's got to be worth a tremendous amount. So I saw one of the Forship says, we finished the Torah. We finished learning Torah. And everybody knows Talmud Torah can get kulam. There's no mitzvah like learning Torah. Do we really appreciate the value of Torah? Do we really appreciate the value of Torah? And the answer is, it's difficult for us. As much as we know Torah is worth, there's only one thing we could do. There are other things, but one thing we can do to look at evidence. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created an entire world. That's an entire world. That includes Afghanistan. And it was all included, all created, for what reason? So that we should learn Torah. And that it'll stop to exist if we don't learn Torah. That tells you right there the value of Torah. The value of Torah is such that I don't know exactly how much it's worth, but it's certainly worth a whole lot if HaKadosh Baruch Hu created an entire world just for Torah. That's the one thing that I know. I think the story, I must have told you the story at some point or other about the guy with the car. But there's a documented incident of a guy walks into an automobile dealership. You remember the story? Remember the story I told you? Remember the story? Guy walks into an true story. True that I saw it and documented. A guy walks into an automobile dealership, and late Friday afternoon, and he buys a car for $50,000. Maybe some of the people could sit just on this side of the room because I keep turning over here and there's nobody here, and I just feel the tables are lonely. Yeah. It wasn't a dare. It was like, you'll be okay. Thank you. Oh, no, you know what? I changed my mind. The guy walks into an automobile dealership late Friday afternoon, and he buys a brand new car for $50,000. He gets in the car Friday afternoon. He drives straight over to a used car dealership, and he says to the guy, listen, I just bought this car for $50,000. I'll sell it to you for $20,000. Guy says to him, why would you want to sell a $50,000 car for $20,000? He says, don't ask questions. You make $30,000. Guy says, I don't know. He starts thinking about it. Says, let me think about it. He walks out of the office. He calls the cops. He says, you better get down here. You got a funny situation. Cop comes down, tells him the story. He says to the guy, why do you want to sell a $50,000 car for $20,000? The guy smiles sweetly at the cop. He says, none of your business. Cops don't like that. Trust me, from personal experience. And the cop says to him, well, I'm going to make it my business. Let me see your credit cards. He takes the credit card. He calls the company. Company's closed. It's late Friday afternoon. Company's closed for the weekend. Says the guy, sorry, I'm going to have to lock you up. And Monday morning, we'll call the company. The guy locks him up Saturday, Sunday. Monday morning, he calls the company. Sure enough, he's got a credit line. Everything's in order. No problem. Cop comes to the prison, lets the guy out of the prison. Maybe I trouble you just if we could close the door over there. Cop comes to the, thank you. Notice I said we. Could we close the door? And I had no intention of doing it. That comes from being married. like when your wife says, we need to call the washing machine guy. Oh yeah, we, me or you, right? So cop comes to the guy, lets him out of prison. He says, I'm sorry, my mistake, you're free to go. The guy smiles sweetly at the cop again, goes straight to an attorney's office, files a lawsuit against the police department for false arrest. He planned the entire escapade, start to finish, to do something that looks questionable, sell a $50,000 car for $20,000. He did it Friday afternoon when he knew the credit card company would be closed for the weekend. And then in court, he was able to sue for traumatic suffering and distress because he was in prison for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, and he got a settlement of $3.5 million. You like that, huh? You're like, yeah, what can I do? That looks questionable, yeah. So, you got a settlement of $3.5 million. True story, true incident, documented. Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein, Shlita, Rabbi Elyashiv's son-in-law, he brings this down in one of his svarim. There's a lesson, very important lesson. Okay, you can't do it, obviously, because it's Genevas Das and so on and so forth, and they're perpetrating a deception that you can't do. But when I told my wife this story years ago, I told her the story the first time, my wife said to me, who would think of something like that? So I said, millionaires, that's who, and that's why we're not, because we didn't think of it. So the lesson, and it's an important life lesson, if somebody would ask you, how much was the car worth? Worth $50,000? Car's worth $20,000? Car's worth $3.5 million. Somebody says to you, how much is Torah worth? I don't know, not sure. I only know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created an entire world with billions of people over the course of history, and countries, and seas, and everything that's been happening for one purpose, for the Torah, which is called Rashis. And therefore, a person has to understand that the Torah is our life. That is our life. And we're making a siyum on the Torah. When we make a siyum, we immediately start the next round. Because we're not finished. We finished a cycle, but we're only starting. It's now it's a new beginning. And if you've learned any of the Masech, when you learn sometimes the Masechtas, even all of Shas. Somebody once said, in order to learn Shas, you got to know Shas. In order to learn Baba Kama, you got to know all of Baba Kama. It's an interesting thing, because once you learn through it, then you realize, wow, I really don't know Baba Kama. It's a great feeling. I just made a siyum on the Torah, and I understand that there's so much there that I don't know, so now we start again. But this is our life pursuit. The extension of this is the Medrash. I think I told this Medrash over at the... remember I told the Medrash with the lion. There was a guy on his way to Eretz Yisrael. Some of you may have been there. The guy was on his way to Eretz Yisrael, and he saw a bird, and one bird killed another bird. So he watched the first bird, and the first bird went over, and he ripped off a blade of grass, and he took this grass, and he touched it to the dead bird, and the dead bird came to life. So this guy was happy. Now he's got grass that can bring people to life. And he's on his way to Eretz Yisrael. So he's taking these blades, he picks up some blades of grass, because now he's got Tchias HaMesim in his hands. He can bring the resurrection of the dead. So he's on his way to Eretz Yisrael. He's got this grass, legalized Tchias HaMesim grass, and he's on his way, as medicinal as it gets, and he's on his way to Eretz Yisrael, and on the way he sees a dead fox on the side of the road. So he decides to test the grass. So he goes over to the dead fox, he touches it with the grass, blade of grass, the fox comes to life. He says, this is unbelievable. I'm going to go to Eretz Yisrael, Tchias HaMesim. I'm going to bring people to life. All those people who owe me money, they're coming back. And he goes and says, this is great. What could be better? And he continues walking, and he sees a lion, a dead lion on the side of the road. So he decides to give it one more test. So he walks over, and he puts the grass on the lion, and the lion comes to life. And the lion apparently got hungry while he was dead, and that was the end of this guy's trip to Eretz Yisrael. That's what the Medrash says. What a Chazal, that's a Medrash. Chazal are telling it. What do Chazal want? What are they telling me? They're telling me a story. It sounds like a guy with a blade of grass bringing lions to life. What's the point of the Medrash? So I was thinking about it, and it could very well be that the point is that here a person could be holding in his hands the ultimate potential that any human being could access, which is to bring other people to life. What could be more potent than having the cure for death? And what does he do? In a moment of foolishness, I mean, you really got to be not thinking in order to test it on a lion. You know, if it was a llama, okay, you know, a giraffe, maybe, but not a lion. I mean, come on, you know, what are you thinking? And the answer is that he's got the potential for life in his hand, and in a moment of folly, he goes and he throws that away. And a person has to know that we're given a Torah, and we're making a siyum, and we're dancing, and we're celebrating. What we're really celebrating, besides the Torah itself, is the realization that look at what we've achieved. We are achieving our potential. We're growing as Torah Jews. And it's not only the celebration of the Torah itself, it's the celebration of everything we've been doing in the course of the year. The world at large celebrates New Year's. Rabbi say, what's the most depressing day of the year? What is the single most depressing day of the year for any individual? You know what it is? The most depressing day, or at least potentially depressing day? What's the most depressing? Anybody got an idea? What's the most depressing day of the year? January the 1st. You're getting close. What? You're close. What's the most depressing day for an individual? What's that? Your birthday. Birthday is an inherently depressing day. People celebrate it. You know why people celebrate it? People celebrate birthdays, right? First of all, you know, somebody comes over to you and says, oh, by the way, you know, today's my birthday. Everybody goes, wow, happy birthday. Nobody cares. Okay. No, nobody really cares, unless you invite them to a party and you got some free beer. Nobody cares. Why do people celebrate it? And not only do they celebrate it, what do people? People generally drink themselves to a state of almost unconsciousness on their birthday. That's called a celebration, by the way. You drink until you basically can't walk straight and you can't think straight. Why? Because the consequence of thinking about what a birthday means, it means 1 year closer to the grave. Let's call a spade a spade. I don't mean the spade that digs the grave. Let's call that a person's 1 year closer to the grave. That's a depressing thought. January 1st, what does the world at large do on a Rosh Hashanah? Exactly what you said. What does the world do on their New Year's? They all go out, they count down the new year in Times Square, take off their shirts in sub-zero weather with the new year painted across their chest, which is about as bright as bringing dead lions to life. And then they go and they get boozed up, and everybody's counting out, 10, 9, 8, happy, then they all yell Happy New Year. Why are they drinking? Why are they boozing it up? The answer is because as a collective society, they realize another year's passed on my individual life and on the societal life. I'm no better, I'm no wiser, I'm no anything more other than 1 year closer to the grave. That's all I am. A Torah Jew celebrates Rosh Hashanah completely different. What is Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah is look what we accomplished in the last year. We davened, we gave tzedakah, we learned Torah, we worked on self-control in our midos, we grew. Maybe we could grow more. Maybe we could grow better. Maybe we could learn more Torah. Of course we could always do better. But a person understands for Rosh Hashanah for a Torah Jew is not a depressing day, and a birthday is not a depressing day. It marks time to show and indicate, you know what, look what I've accomplished. Look what I've done in the last year. That's what this point of the year is. This point of the year is finishing that cycle and thinking about and realizing, hey, we've accomplished something. The greatest act of folly is that a person has life potential to achieve and he throws it away. That's the foolishness. That's what bringing a lion to life is. It goes even more than that. If you look towards the end of the parsha, so how do we finish the parsha? We finish V'zos HaBracha. We're making a siyum on the Torah. You know, you would expect, you know, kind of a happy ending for, you know, after all, it's been a long story. All sorts of drama, you know. Avram Avinu takes his son up and almost shechts him. And what do you call it? You know, Yosef gets sold by his brothers. You know, they always come out good. Everybody is there. I once heard there was a man in shul. There was a man in shul who was crying on Rosh Hashanah, and they read the Akedah, and they read the Akedah's Yetzer. There was an elderly man who was crying in shul, And somebody else, one of the other guys in shul, saw him and he felt bad for him, so he walked over. He said, "Don't worry, he's going to make it." And Yosef, year after year, he gets sold, but he keeps making his way home, and you have the happy ending, and he becomes a king and wonderful. You would expect the Torah to end on a kind of a high note. How does the Torah end? What is the siyum? What is the siyum of the Torah? How does the Torah end? The Torah ends with the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. Can you maybe say that a little earlier and then talk about all the good things Moshe Rabbeinu did? Not only that, after the death of Moshe Rabbeinu, what's the last pasuk in the Torah? The Moshe Rabbeinu b'chol hayara chazaka, says Rashi, he broke the luchos. And that's how it ends. That's the end of the story. I mean, could you imagine? Can you imagine? Tell me a story. This couple got engaged, and the chassan went to the bride's house to meet the family, and he knocked the big tray off the table and it shattered. Yeah, and then what happened? No, that's the end of the story. That's the story. Give me a happy ending. And then he said, "I'm sorry," and his father-in-law was really impressed and therefore gave him a check for $500,000 because it was a good meetos. Now that's an ending. Right? And if it would have been more than that, that's even a happier ending. Well, that's how the Torah ends. What's going on? So the answer obviously is that it is a happy ending. Because the Torah says something very strange. Moshe Rabbeinu dies, Hashem says, "Go up the mountain." That's the mountain where you're going to die. And the Gemara says that mountain that Moshe Rabbeinu had to climb, which is where he was going to die, the mountain had 12 steps up. That's what the Gemara in Sota says. There were 12 steps. I don't know if it's steps like we have steps, but it was 12 steps up, whatever those steps were. And the Gemara says Moshe took all 12 steps in one pace. One giant step, and he got all the way up the mountain. What does that mean? Even a bigger question. If a person was told, "Go up that mountain because that's where you're going to die," how do you think he would go up the mountain? What speed, what rate would it be to go up the mountain? Most people knowing, watch a guy's being taken off to be executed. Most guys being taken to the electric chair, they kind of probably a bit resistant. It's not like, "Oh, good. I always wanted to see what that chair feels like. Better, more comfortable in my chair at home." Most people would kind of, probably be a little, pushed back, and they'd have to be dragged. And Hashem says to Moshe, "Okay, go up the mountain. You're going to die." Really? Boom! Moshe jumps up the mountain. Why? Why is Moshe jumping up the mountain? The answer is that this is also part of Avodas Hashem. That's the good news. That's what the Torah is trying to communicate. What it means for a Torah Jew to grow, at this point of the year, we're growing. We're growing. That's Sukkos, by the way. You've noticed Sukkos. Did you notice that everything around you comes from a tree? You have a lulav, you have an esrog, it grows. The schach, it grows. We're being surrounded by growth. It's all about growth. It's all about growth. There was a bunch of little boys who were once having a contest who could climb up the pole the fastest, who could climb up the highest the fastest. A bunch of little kids were climbing up this pole. And one kid kept winning over and over. Each time they had the contest, one kid kept winning. There's an older man was watching them. And after they finished the last contest, he walked over to the little kid who kept winning. He says, "I know why you won. I was watching. I know why you kept winning." All the other kids, as they climbed up the pole, they got pretty high. They looked down. They saw how high they were. They got nervous, and they stopped climbing. You never took your eyes and focused downwards. You kept your eyes focused upwards. And because you focused upwards, you just kept climbing higher and higher. The older man was the Chiddushei Harim, and the little boy was his grandson, the Sfas Emes. And what he was telling him was, a person who grows, it's all about climbing that pole, growing. You got to keep your focus upwards. And that's what we're doing at this point of the year. We're keeping our focus upwards. Moshe Rabbeinu is told by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there's a very big misconception. People think when Moshe Rabbeinu was told by Hashem, "Go up to the mountain because you're going to die," that was a command from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know what Moshe Rabbeinu could have done? He could have turned around and said, "No, I don't want to." Like being told not to eat treif. Person said, "You can't eat treif." "Yeah, but I don't play that. I'm not that religious." And you eat it. Person told, "Get up for minyan." "No, I don't do that." Not that you're forced. Moshe Rabbeinu had a tzivui from HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a command. He had a mitzvah to fulfill, which is go up the mountain to die. And Moshe Rabbeinu, in keeping with the Chazal that says, "La'olam yehei adam ratz le'mitzvah," you should run to do a mitzvah. So Moshe ran to do the mitzvah. Instead of climbing up 12 steps one at a time, he ran to fulfill the Ratzon Hashem, which was our attitude is supposed to be. Keeping in mind Rabbi Yisrael Salanter's famous line, sometimes people run to do a mitzvah and they trample the entire world on the way. So one has to be careful when they're doing the running to do a mitzvah. For instance, if somebody is eager to kiss the Sefer Torah, when it's being brought out of the Aron Kodesh and being brought, one who is overly eager may elbow people on the way. Get out of my way, I'm trying to kiss the Sefer Torah. So that is Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, his idea that, be careful when you do your mitzvahs, that you don't do it on somebody else's expense. But Moshe Rabbeinu jumps up, he runs up that mountain. Why? Because that's how you demonstrate, that's how you demonstrate that you are serving the Ribono Shel Olam. That means that you've absorbed Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the good news. One second, there's more. When Moshe Rabbeinu is buried, so the Torah says, "V'lo yada ish es kvuraso." Nobody knew Moshe Rabbeinu's burial place. Why? Nobody knew Moshe Rabbeinu. Anybody know why? No, nobody knows Moshe Rabbeinu's burial place. So the Bach in Maseches Sota says, because if the Jews would have known Moshe Rabbeinu's burial place, so at the time of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, they would have gone to Moshe Rabbeinu's burial place, and they would have davened at Moshe Rabbeinu's burial place, and they would try to bring Moshe Rabbeinu back. They would have davened that Moshe Rabbeinu, listen, we're being sent into exile. And Moshe Rabbeinu would have davened, and he would have voided the decree of exile. That's what the Bach says. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu's burial place was hidden. But other Mefarshim say the pasuk could be read slightly differently. V'lo yada ish es kvuraso, no man knew his burial place, is not referring only to Moshe Rabbeinu. That means no human being knows where he's going to die. Nobody knows where his burial place is going to be. What's his name? Ismail Hania. He should rest in pieces. So, he was in the most fortified, protected, 5-star hotel. And he really intended to go there and have a blast, which he did. And, had he known in advance what was going to happen, he wouldn't have gone there. No one would go to a place where they know that's going to be their burial, but that's where they're going to die. V'lo yada ish es kvuraso, no human being knows where. Because if a person knew where, they would avoid it. The old saying goes, to avoid that rundown feeling, look both ways before crossing the street. So a person would avoid it. If at first you don't succeed, skydiving is not for you. So if he would, if he'd know that that's what's going to happen, so he certainly would have avoided it. Well, what does that mean? The Gemara says that Shlomo HaMelech, the Gemara in Sukkos says, Shlomo HaMelech met the angel of death, the Malach HaMavis. And he saw that the Malach HaMavis looked sad. He said to the Malach HaMavis, "Why are you sad?" So Moshe Rabbeinu said, the Malach HaMavis said to Shlomo HaMelech, "Because I've been sent down to terminate the life of 2 men who were very beloved to Shlomo HaMelech, and I cannot get at them." So Shlomo HaMelech said, "No, b'atzlacha." And the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death, left. Moshe Rabbeinu called in the Seirim, the Shadim, the forces, the spiritual forces that Shlomo HaMelech had communication with. He called them in and he said, "I want you to transport these 2 men to the city of Luz." The city of Luz was an ancient city where nobody died in the city of Luz. Nobody died when people got tired of living, so they just kind of left the city and they died outside the city of Luz. There's another opinion that they were escorted out by some of the other residents. Whatever the case is, nobody died in the city of Luz. Why they're called losers, we don't know. But that's what you call people from Luz. People from Michigan are called Michiganders, right? So these are the losers. But nobody died in the ancient city of Luz. So the Seirim, the Shadim, were transporting these 2 men to the city of Luz. And as they got to the gates of the city, before they could get in, the angel of death got them. The Malach HaMavis got them right at the gates of the city of Luz. The next day, Shlomo HaMelech saw the Malach HaMavis, and it was all smiles. So what are you smiling about? He says, exactly where I needed them, you sent them. You sent them right where I needed them. That means that when the Malach HaMavos was sent down to get him, it was to be at the gates of the city of Luz. If you would have asked anybody, if you were Shlomo HaMelech, what would you have done? We would have done exactly the same thing. That's lo yada yishes kfurasa. Nobody knows where he's going to die, because otherwise people would avoid that place. Most people would avoid knowing, if they know that that's where they're going to die, so they would certainly avoid it. So what happens to Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu then goes, and he takes it says he takes the chol hayoda chazaka, he takes the luchos, and he smashes the luchos. That's how the Torah ends. Didn't that never struck you as strange? That's the final pasuk in the Torah, that Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchos in full view of Klal Yisrael. Doesn't strike you as strange at all. What's the answer? The answer is, you've heard, there was the Akedah. Avram Avinu takes Yitzchak up to the Akedah. What was the test of the Akedah? What was the real test of the Akedah? He's going to shecht his son. Waited for his son 90 years, 100 years, and now he's going to shecht him. So, at a simple level, there's the difficulty, the test of a father taking and shechting his son, especially such a beloved son. At a slightly deeper level, the test is threefold. It's a test of the present, the difficulty of doing it. It's a test of the future, which is that you're not going to have a son to have all the future progeny. And it's a test of the past. Because Avram Avinu's entire life had been preaching against the pagan world, against human sacrifice. And now in one swoop of the knife, he's going to take his own son, and he's going to shecht his son and wipe out everything that he's accomplished his entire life. People say, you're a hypocrite. You could go shechting and we can't. And everyone's going to say, yeah, well, Hashem told me. The Lord told me to do it. Well, the Lord told us to do it too. There goes that's the test of the Akedah. You're going to wipe out everything. Everything you did, doing, and are going to do, it's all going in one shot of the knife. What does Avraham Avinu do? No cheshbon. That's what Hashem said to do. What does Moshe Rabbeinu do? What was his life's work? His life's work was the Torah. His life's work, everything was aimed at bringing down those luchos from Sinai. That was the pinnacle of his life. That was life accomplishment. And Hashem says to him, Moshe Rabbeinu figured it out. Hashem ratified it later. But Moshe Rabbeinu figures out, this is what I need to do right now to serve the Ribono Shel Olam. And he takes and he throws away his life's work. He smashes. That's the good news. That's what the Torah is teaching us at ending. The Torah is ending that says, Moshe Rabbeinu, what's the highest compliment Moshe Rabbeinu gets? What's he called? What's Moshe Rabbeinu called? He's called Eved Hashem. He's the servant of God. That's the ultimate compliment. You know why? Because an Eved does as he's told. An Eved is somebody who does exactly what he's told, like a husband. That's what an Eved is. You do what you're told without asking questions. And if you ask questions, you're going to do it anyway. So you may as well just do it right away. An Eved, the ultimate compliment for Moshe Rabbeinu is, this is what the Ratzon Hashem is. Therefore I smashed the luchos. In Chicago, those of you who've never been to Chicago, you've missed out. Those of you who are not from Chicago, you're probably jealous of those of us who are. Yes, Shaya, you're jealous. You may not know it, you may not feel it, but I'm telling you it's so. And by the way, we need to discuss something afterwards. It wasn't such a good season for you, was it, White Sox fan? No, it's man simchasenu for me. So in Chicago, there's a building complex called Winston Towers, which is a largely Jewish building complex. And there was a firm guy, and one Sukkos, he went and he built a sukkah right in the parking lot. So this Jewish lady, an older Jewish lady, comes out, she says, oh no, you're not putting that shack up over here. We're not having any of that religious stuff around here. And she came out and protested. She said, get it down, or I'm calling. She called the city. area, what do you call the city inspectors came down and said, sir, you can't put that shack up in the parking lot. So he said, okay. So he went to a truck rental and he rented a flatbed truck. And he parked the flatbed truck in the parking lot, which is perfectly legal. And he built a sukkah on the flatbed truck. I think it was right outside her window. And he built the sukkah right on this flatbed truck. And that was Man Simchasenu. I was wondering, what was bothering that lady? What's really bothering her? What was really bothering that lady that she couldn't take the fact that this Jew, who looks like a frum Jew, is building a sukkah, it's an unpleasant reminder. What is it about the sukkah that's bothering her? And I think the answer is that the sukkah is a reminder of how temporary this world is. 70 years, 7 days of sukkahs. 7 days represent 7 decades of a lifetime. Yemeshno seinu b'hem shivim shana, v'im b'gvuros shmonim shana. 70 years. It's a temporary world. And if it's a temporary world, so a person understands, well, then what am I meant to do here? How long is a person going to live? Sometimes people say, well, I'll make it to 80. I'll make it to 90. And what are you going to do at 90? Harpooning off the coast of Nova Scotia isn't the same at 90 as it is when you're 25. It's exactly what you're planning on doing when you're 90, other than trying to find a stronger denture adhesive. I'm not sure, there's all those action verbs ending in ing, they don't happen at 90. At 90, there's visiting happens, that ends in ing, visiting doctors. Right? Somebody just told me, an older guy today told me that when he goes to the doctor usually says one thing to him whenever he complains about some sort of pain. He says, doctor just says to him, get used to it. Right? That's the doctor's advice. So, they say at a certain age, if you wake up and nothing's hurting you, that means he's dead. So if guy once said to his friend, older guy said to his friend, the only thing that doesn't hurt me is my beard. It's the only thing that doesn't hurt. So, where are you heading for? It's a reminder, Sukkos is a reminder that the whole thing is temporary. The whole thing's coming to a close. The whole thing's going to end. And what she's bothered by is because she's not interested in thinking about that. The person who understands, the person who sees that sukkah is there as a reminder to us. 70 years, 80 years. By the way, statistically, women live longer than men. Statistically, that's all statistics. Men live to about, nowadays I think the life expectancy for men, depending on where you live, but the life expectancy for men is about 74 years old, I think, and for women it's 78, 79, something like that. So that's what the statistics show. Why they live longer is not clear, not sure. And by the way, married men, the statistics show that married men live longer than single men, but married men are more willing to die. So why that is, we only know that a person looks at a sukkah, and a sukkah is a reminder, hey, this is all temporary. The same way that sukkah is coming down, one day this person is coming down. And therefore, a person who's not looking for growth, that could be a very, very unpleasant reminder. I'm only speculating on what it was that was bothering her, but I have a strong suspicion. The Gemara says, with this we conclude, but the Gemara says that in the future, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to shech the Yetzer Hara. And when he shechs the Yetzer Hara, everybody's going to cry. The tzaddikim are going to cry, and the Rishonim are going to cry. The tzaddikim are going to cry because they're going to say, this incredible mountain, how did we manage to get past this mountain of Yetzer Hara? Rashi says they're going to cry tears. If you ever did something in life that was difficult, like studying for midterms, or studying for finals, studying for a test, and you passed the test, you may have done well on the test. And one day you start thinking back oh, did I study? Oh, did I study? The pain. And the tzaddikim are going to cry when they think of the pain that it was required in order to overcome the mountain. The Rishonim are going to cry because they're going to say to themselves, this thin strand of hair, there was nothing here. How did I strip? How can I keep tripping on this? That's what the Gemara says. They're going to cry. Again, I trip. The obvious question is, make up your mind. Is the Yetzer Hara a mountain, or is the Yetzer Hara a thin strand of hair? Which one is it? And the answer is, one of the Forshim explains, there are two stages in every Yetzer Hara. There's the imagination stage, where you imagine what the pleasure is going to be. Classic example, we just had a Yom Kippur. Not that it was an Avera, but it probably, at some point during Yom Kippur, maybe you're better than I am, I'm sure you are better than me, but at some point on Yom Kippur, there are people who have a fleeting thought of what it is they're going to be breaking their fast on. If it's going to be a hot fudge barge, is it going to be 4 slices of pizza wedged together, a cold Pepsi? At some point or other, it does, for those of us, those who are not here, there are people out there who sometimes think about these things on Yom Kippur. Not us, of course. And then Yom Kippur ends, and there's an expression in all languages, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. No, you can't. First of all, it's not kosher. Second of all, you can't. I guarantee you. Even if it was a big kosher cow, you couldn't eat it. Maybe a little chicken, not a cow, not a horse. But when a person is caught up in the stage of imagination, all pleasures are bigger and better than a person. You imagine it till you experience it, and you say, "That was good." But in the end, wasn't as good as I imagined it to be. Many life experiences, if not all life experiences, are like that. A little kid imagining how good the amusement park's going to be the next day, and you can't sleep because the amusement park's going to just be unbelievable. Then you go to the amusement park, somehow it does not match up to what you imagined. It's good, but in the imagination stage, it was going to be Me'elam Haba. You certainly didn't imagine, getting flipped around upside down on the supersonic dinner spinner, and then you got nauseous for the rest of the day. You didn't expect that your money was going to fall out of your pocket while you were upside down and your yarmulke falls off. You didn't expect to get beaten up by some shagets because you cut them in line. None of that was, but when you went to the park, you did the thing. It was good. Doesn't match your. I once heard about a couple that spends weeks planning vacations. Lodges, accommodations, travel, weeks they stand, but they never go because they don't want to ruin it. Because in the imagination state, it's like, wow, a trip. Somebody once said, going there is a lot better than actually being there. So, what's a tzaddik? A tzaddik is somebody who sees a forbidden pleasure and he doesn't indulge. He sees a mountain of pleasure, but he doesn't indulge. So he walks away with a sense that what did he give up? He just sacrificed a mountain of pleasure. To him, that Yetzer Hara is a mountain. He didn't indulge. He doesn't know. Because in the imagination stage, it stays in the imagination stage. So he walked away from a mountain of pleasure. What about the Russia? He looks at a mountain of pleasure, and he goes, indulges, and then turns around and says, that's it? That was all it was? And he walks away disappointed with himself time after time, because each time it presents itself as a new mountain. That's how I'm forced to explain the Gemara. The world lives with an illusion. The illusion that the world is trapped in is this illusion of permanence, this idea that it's going to go on and on. Sukkos, a siyum, it's all a reminder that one day it comes to an end. And because it comes to an end, so the Torah Jew turns around, we're not depressed by any of it. Rosh Hoshana is uplifting. Rosh Hoshana is a reminder, I grew and I'm going to continue growing. Sukkos is simply a continuation. We grew and we're going to continue growing. And therefore, every single person here, you should know that you should go home and you should look in a mirror. And you should look at yourself and say, you know what? I am a siyum. I'm somebody who's growing. That's Man Simchosenu. The Man Simchosenu is, and you have to be, yeah, we did that already. We did that. We talked about what we messed up. But, it's the same Torah that talks about, somebody once came to the stipler, a guy once came to the stipler. He was all bent out of shape because he was worried. He was worried about this avera, that avera, and he asked the stipler a question. The stipler said, you could be lenient, you could be makel. And the guy was, yeah, but the stipler said, the same Hashem that gave the chumras, he gave the kulas also. The same Torah that says what's an Aveira says what's a mitzvah. The same Torah that says there's a Gehenna says there's a Gan Eden. The same Torah says that a person suffers consequences for an Aveira. The same Torah that says a person gets reward for the mitzvahs. Every single person should go into a Sukkos, should go into a Shmini Atzeres in a celebration at this point of the year. It should be a personal celebration for what you've accomplished in the course, what we've accomplished in the course of the last year. And a person who doesn't feel that simcha, that's a flaw in the individual. Because if you're really doing it right, then the same way you believe everything else, and the same way that you bought into everything else, we have to buy into this also. Because this is also part of Hashem's Torah. And part of Hashem's Torah is, yes, we accomplished, we made a siyum. And now we're going to continue our growth in the coming year, Be'ezer Hashem. Should be a Chag Kosher V'Sameach for everybody.